The year 2025 is finally here. And last year, I played through 16 Pokemon games. And in this video, I'm going to recap on all the teams I used this year and give them a rating out of 10 based on how much I liked them, how creative I thought they were, and my overall experience with the team. 10 being my favorite team I've ever used, that was insanely cool and memorable, to 1 being a team I didn't like at all and that was pure garbage. This isn't my idea for a video, by the way. A bunch of different creators have done this idea in the past, but I got this idea from M&J TV, who went over all the teams I used all year and gave them a rating, which is a fantastic idea for a video, and I really wanted to do the same, so all credit to them and all credit to the other creators who have done this in the past. So, without further ado, let's go down memory lane. The first team I'll be going over, well, there's 2. Those are my teams for Pokemon Luminescent Platinum, and my god, rewatching these videos.
Alright, Mira, what's up? Stay away, Mira. Oh, okay, good talk.
Like, goddamn, bro, cheer up! This game was a very fun challenge for me, and was the first Switch fan game I've ever played. And surprisingly, these videos are still some of the best performing videos on my channel, which is shocking to me, but hey, I'm not complaining. I changed my team many times and used many different Pokemon throughout the game, even beating Crasher Wake with a team of 6 Rotoms, which is pretty funny. My final team I beat the Elite Four with was Batman the Gliscor, Cross the Garchomp, Sprite the Bug Dragon-type Flygon, Gex the Grass Dragon-type Sceptile, Lanky the Infernape, and finally, the MVP and the reason why I beat the Elite Four in the first place, Magnum the Gyarados. Lanky was my starter I chose from Rowan, and was insane right from the start, having both its hidden ability in Iron Fist and an adamant nature, and was a Pokemon I consistently used all throughout the game. Magnum I caught a while into the game, since I thought it'd be a helpful Pokemon in the Spear Pillar events, and this thing went on to absolutely carry me in the Cyrus fight, with Dragon Dance and Stab Aqua Tail and Bounce. The reason I brought Flygon was because of not only its bug type being great into Lucian, but also getting the insane Quiver Dance, along with Bug Buzz, Dragon Pulse, and Flamethrower, made it a great sweeper in theory, but I'm not going to spoil anything in case you haven't seen the video, but I didn't get to use it much. Overall though, with the Pokemon I had access to, I could have made a way better team for the Elite Four. For example, during the playthrough, I used a Choice Specs Aeolite Salamence with Hyper Voice, an Intimidate Tyranitar, a Fire Dragon type Charizard with Drought or Levitate, a Metagross, and so many insane mons that were buffed to crazy degree in this game. I mean, I brought 2 ground types and 3 dragon types, which is far from balanced. Like, what was I thinking? But my second team was for the Elite Four rematch, which I did after the post game when I got all the legendaries. So as you can imagine, this team was absolutely nasty. My team was Palkia, Lugia, Arceus, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. So yeah, the Elite Four stood no chance. And a small side note if you haven't watched the video, but Kyogre had Primordial Sea, Groudon had Desolate Land, and Rayquaza had Delta Stream, as their hidden abilities, which was absolutely unreal. So, for my first team, I'm gonna rate it a 6 out of 10, since it was super unbalanced, and I would have lost if it wasn't for Gyarados, so Gyarados, you get 5 points, but you should definitely go watch that series if you haven't. And my second team, obviously a 10 out of 10. My next playthrough was my journey through Pokemon Spork, which was my first video I wrote a script for and did all the editing afterwards. And it really shows that it's my first, since it definitely isn't my best work, but hey, it was my first ever, so come on, cut me some slack for this one. Spork was an extremely long game though, having gyms for all the 18 types, but I still found it to be really enjoyable. The selling point of this game being that you could pick any starter you want. Literally any of the over 1,000 Pokemon, including legendaries, paradoxes, fucking Blitbug. You could choose any starter you want. I ended up choosing Gimmighoul since I love Goldengo and thought it would be really rare, but later in the game, spoiler alert, there was a static encounter Gimmighoul, which I was super pissed about since I could have picked anything I want, but I picked the one that's a static encounter. But it's not a big deal. My final team ended up being Yen the Golden Go, Cross the Roaring Moon, Echo the Iron Valiant, Finn the Palafin, Kong the Galarian Darmanitan, and Kirk the Tyranitar. But the same as Luminescent Platinum, I used a bunch of different Pokemon during the game since the variety of Pokemon was super wide, including a Mega Cinderace, which is super awesome. Kong had the ability Zen Mode, which was different, I wasn't expecting it to have Zen Mode, and Palafin had Water Veil in its hero form. In this game, it didn't have Zero to Hero, so there's an NPC you could talk to that would change its form into hero form, giving it the crazy stats and all that. Overall, I'll give this team a 7 out of 10, since I used a lot of Paradox Pokemon, which, yeah, were cool, but were really busted and were pretty uncreative for me to use, since instead of the normal abilities they had in Quark Drive and Photosynthesis, they had Beast Boost, which is completely and utterly unfair, especially on these Pokemon and their stats. Also, using Mega Tyranitar was really cool. But if you haven't checked out Spork before and you're looking for a game that'll keep you busy for a long time, I'd recommend checking out Spork. My next playthrough is probably one of my favorite videos I've done this year. That's my video on Pokemon Solar Light and Lunar Dark. I did this video in a similar style to my Spork video, playing through the entire game and writing a script for it afterwards, and it still isn't my best work, but hey, I really enjoyed making this video, which earned some points for me. Solar Light and Lunar Dark introduced a fully custom region, story, Pokedex, and a lot more, making it honestly one of my favorite fan games of all time. My final team was Havoc the Salaslam, my starter, a water poison type, Nitro the Rhizodon, an electric ground type, Ion the Terravolt, an electric flying type, Tonic the Polar Pow, an ice fighting type, Spud the Frugon, a grass dragon type, and Shades the Blazilic, a fire dragon type, and my favorite Pokemon on my team. I absolutely loved this team though, and the game itself. It was super enjoyable and I would so go back and play it without question, which is why I'm giving this team a 9 out of 10. My next playthrough was of Pokemon Castaway, which again I wrote a script for and edited the video afterwards. This game was a bit different though, since it wasn't your traditional Pokemon game. I'm gonna spoil the game a little bit, but you start off by winning a vacation to the Alola region, then the plane catches fire and you jump out and end up on an island, which you have to explore the island to try and get off it. The concept of this game was absolutely amazing, and while not the longest game ever, which was kind of upsetting because if this game had a fully finished story with gyms in Elite Four, it probably would have been a top 5 game of all time in my opinion. My final team was Sandy the Palossand, Rush the Toucanon, Fang the Sharpedo, Rogue the Toxicroak, Taser the Galvantula, and Bullet the Gabite. I mean, for the purposes of this game, my team was pretty good, not really struggling with any fights, except for one fight which I won't spoil, but I had to catch something else to help with that fight. In terms of production, I'm really proud of this video, and I think it's one of my best I've ever made, really putting effort into it, but I'm gonna give this team a 7 out of 10, since I used Pokemon I never really used before, which was kind of what I wanted to do, and the game being an absolute banger too. Up next was my Pokemon But I'm the Gym Leader video, which is where I started doing these videos in the style of playing through the game with commentary as the game goes on, which is more in the style of my modern videos and one I've been doing a lot more recently. The game itself was pretty self-explanatory. I get to pick my gym specialty, and I am the gym leader of my town, fighting my way up the ranks and even being involved in the story plot, which was pretty sweet. I liked the game, and it was different compared to the more traditional style of game, but my final team was Rin the Garchomp, Scales the Komodo, Razor the Haxorus, Legion the Charizard, Jet the Dragapult, and the MVP, Titan the Steel Dragon-type Aggron with Shifty Gear, which I'm giving this team a 9 out of 10. The beginning was a little rough, because trying to catch Pokemon with Dragon Rage isn't the funnest thing ever, but once I caught some guys, the game became really enjoyable and really began to open up. My next playthrough was titled Pokemon Fire Red, but every single Pokemon has a new form, which, again, was one of my favorite videos I've done all year and one of my favorite games I've played all year. The game was Pokemon Alta Red, and was, as the title suggested, every Pokemon in Fire Red had a new form with new designs, stats, abilities, all of that. My final team was Squatch the Glacier, the Ice Water type Golem, Pharaoh the Cerberus, the Ground Dragon type Ampharos, Puff, the Pixonite, the Fairy Flying type Dragonite, Nacho, the Forest Star, the Grass Dragon type Tyranitar, Sonic, the Drone Mega, the Steel Flying type Yanmega, and Blitz, the Volcasaur, the Fire type Venusaur. Along with one of my favorite games, this was probably one of my favorite teams I've made, using some of my favorite Pokemon like Ampharos, Dragonite, and using some of my favorite forms in the game, notably Drone Mega being probably my favorite. Overall, this game gets a 10 out of 10 because how amazing it was and how creative it was, and my team gets a 9.5 out of 10, since it was a really goddamn good team. I just struggled with Elite Four Lorelei, but other than that, the team was amazing. Next was my second playthrough of Pokemon Infinite Fusion, and I'ma just say right now, Infinite Fusion is my favorite fan game ever made, and I think it'll stay that way for a while. The amount of work that goes into this game is absolutely insane, and every time I play through it, I have so much fun and use a different team without question. That being said, I've played this game as a series before on my channel, and yeah, these videos are ancient, so don't expect much quality out of these. My final team for this game was Amphanite, the Ampharos Dragonite fusion, which still remains my favorite fusion in the game, Chandleslash, the Chandelure Aegislash, Hynape, the Hydreigon Infernape, Empochomp, the Empoleon Garchomp, Clinkments, the Klinklang Salamence, and finally Shinobi, the Glismega, the Gliscor Yanmega. A pretty unreal team, which I got to personalize myself, which was obviously an awesome touch, so I'll give it another 9 out of 10. For my next playthrough, I played through Pokemon Prism, which was one of the first ROM hacks I ever played when I was younger, playing on my iPad using GBA for iOS. Not too sure how many people remember that one. But it's a ROM hack of Pokemon Crystal, which means we get the beautiful graphics of Generation 2. And it also includes more Pokemon up to Gen 4 with fully custom animated sprites, which was a super nice touch. My final team was Phantom the Dusknoir, Soul the Gallade, Charger the Rhyperior, Duke the Magmortar, Hazard the Electivire, and Taco the Ludicolo. The team was pretty good, not my best team I've ever made, and as you could probably tell, I tried to go for a mostly Gen 4 team, going as far as to pitch my starter, which is a Larvitar turning into a Tyranitar, in favor of adding Rhyperior. But I'll give this team a 6 out of 10, since the Elite Four was pretty damn hard, and I know I could have made a way better team for this game. Up next was another Infinite Fusion video. Yep, I played through the entire post game, beating all the Johto gym leaders and catching all the legendaries. Which was a super long video to make, since a lot of the legendary puzzles took a good amount of time. But it was a fire post game, which further adds to the things to do in Infinite Fusion, which I loved. I ended up with two final teams, which I'll go over. My first one was, and spoiler alert, of course they're going to be all legendary fusions, Regigigas, a normal dragon type Regigigas Rayquaza fusion that doesn't have slow start. My personal favorite fusion on this team was Kyogre, a water psychic type Necrozma Kyogre fusion with Drizzle, Arcram, the normal fire type Reshiram Arceus fusion, but I made it hold the metal plate, which is an item that boosts grass moves by 20%, but it also changes Arceus to a grass type and changes its judgment attack to grass type too, so this thing was actually a fire grass type instead. But actually, I lied. This thing is my favorite fusion. Darkrom, an electric dark type Zekrom Darkrai fusion, an absolute monster. Palkia, a water dragon type Palkia Giratina. And finally, Grougia, a ground flying type Groudon Lugia fusion. And yeah, 10 out of 10 team isn't even close. But now for my second team I made, which was a team full of legendary triple fusions, which is a fusion with, as you guessed, 3 Pokemon in it. My team was N Raikou, the fire, water, electric type triple fusion of the legendary dogs. Paldeatina, a dragon, ghost, steel, and water type of the creation trio. Kyodon Quaza, a flying, ground, and water type Pokemon of the weather trio. Zekushiram, a dragon, ice, fire, and electric type Pokemon of the Tau trio. Reggie, a triple fusion of the Titans, an ice, rock, and steel type, which is the 8 times weak to fighting type, which is kind of hilarious. And finally, Celemuchi, a triple fusion of Celebi, Mew, and Jirachi, a psychic grass steel type Pokemon, which obviously, again, this team gets a 10 out of 10. And again, Infinite Fusion is probably my favorite Pokemon fan game ever played. And if you haven't played it, I really highly recommend you do because you'll fall in love with it, I promise. My next game I played was Pokemon Gaia, which is a very old ROM hack of Pokemon Fire Red that includes a fully custom region, Pokemon up to Gen 6, Megas, Physical Special Split, and a lot more, but overall this game is great. My final team was Bonsai the Venusaur, Sylvester the Salamence, and the most overpowered Pokemon on my team was Monty the Excadrill. This Pokemon blew my mind at how good it was. Lanky the Infernape, my starter, Tonic the Walrein, and Raiden the Ampharos. I don't want to spoil too much on the video, but this team was really cool. It got the job done when necessary, so I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. Now this is where I took a pretty sizable break from making videos since life was being, well, life. And my next video I uploaded was on Pokerogue, the online browser game, which was actually a great game for what it was, but I'm gonna skip over this game because while I did have a team and beat the game with it, it's not a traditional Pokemon game, so I'm not gonna count it here. But the video is there if you want to go check it out. So my next video was a whole month after, which yeah, I'm sorry, life could get in the way sometimes. But this video was on Pokemon Seaglass Emerald, a fantastic game that takes Emerald and turns it into Gen 2 graphics, along with adding new Pokemon, Physical Special Split, and the graphics being absolutely stellar with a bunch of other features. My final team for this game was Ajax the Annihilate, Aski the Normal Electric type Porygon Z, Glow the Bug Dragon type Yanmega, Katara the Swampert, Kunai the Grass Dragon type Sceptile, and Spirit the Blaziken. Overall, I'll give this team another 9 out of 10, since this team was absolutely monstrous. I didn't really struggle with any fights throughout the game, but special shout out to Glow the Yanmega for learning both Fiery Dance at level 43, having Speed Boost, Detect, and learning Dragon Energy at level 52, which was utterly insane because of Yanmega's Speed Boost, but overall the entire team was pretty unreal. Also, this game was just incredible too. Just all the small changes they made, like this Physical Special Split, TM's breaking, but being able to buy all of them at the Sootopolis Pokemart, and the best one they added, following Pokemon, which I absolutely loved. Highly recommend playing this game if you haven't. Next, I played a similar type of game, being Pokemon Sword and Shield Plus, which takes Pokemon Sword and Shield and turns them into GBA graphics, along with adding all the features you'd expect from a game like this. Physical Special Split, Unbreakable TMs, and all that other good stuff. My final team for this game was Cross the Garchomp, specifically Mega Garchomp, since yup, this game includes Mega Evolution, and Z Crystals, and Gigantamaxing, all in one game, which was super fun. Jerry the Cramorant, because I love this thing and no one will tell me otherwise. Titan the Shiny, G-Max Melmetal, Surge the Toxtricity, Ronan the G-Max Cinderace, and my favorite member on the team, Tart the Hydrapple. I'll give my team an 8 out of 10 for this game, since it was pretty damn good, and I used some Pokemon I really like Melmetal and Hydrapple, and Mega Garchomp is overpowered. My next video was one of the longest ones, and one that took the longest to make. My Pokemon Insurgence Egglock. And yes, the video is over 2 hours long. If you don't know what an Egglock is and how it works, it's a normal Nuzlocke, but most of my boxes are full of eggs, and every encounter I catch will be switched out for an egg in my box, which will replace my encounter. Insurgence is a really long game with a fully fledged out story, characters, new Mega Evolutions, which are all insane and I'll be making a video about them, spoiler alert. And the best feature in my opinion, the new Delta Pokemon, which are new forms of Pokemon with new designs, stats, abilities, and most importantly, types. For example, Dragonite is obviously a dragon flying type with inner focus and multi-scale for its hidden ability. However, Delta Dragonite is a water electric type with the ability Swift Swim and Volt Absorb as its hidden ability, and has an incredible design. I switched my team a lot during the game, planning my team for the next upcoming fight, since this game just kind of feels like a large boss rush, just planning for each fight after the next. But by far the hardest part of the game being the Elite Four. And the team I used to beat the Elite Four was Kappa the Armored Tyranitar, Apache the Flying Fairy type Delta Raichu, Tom the Rotom Wash, Gooey the Water Ground type Delta Gudra, Magnum the Metagross, and finally King the Hydreigon. Obviously, I only made this team for the Elite Four, but it definitely got the job done, annihilating most of the Elite Four with ease. But for this team, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I didn't really use Tom or Apache that much, but I got to use my favorite Mega ever made, Mega Hydreigon, which was absolutely awesome. Also, shout out to Mega Metagross too, that thing is absolutely insane. My next playthrough was of Pokemon Moon Black 2, a ROM hack of Pokemon Black 2 that adds some new Gen 7 Pokemon with fully custom animated sprites, new character models for the Alola cast, and along with that, they added new Unovian forms for various Pokemon, some of which I used on my team. My final team was Wrath the Incineroar, Venom the Dragalge, Necro the Marshadow, which was by far the most overpowered thing on my team, and I got it really early, and it proceeded to absolutely carry me throughout the game, which was awesome. Plus, Spectral Thief, Marshadow's signature move, has the same base power and accuracy as in the normal games, but in this game, it raises your attack by 1 whenever it connects, which is absolutely busted, especially on this Pokemon. My last 3 members were the Unovian forms for all 3 Johto starters. Raiden the Feraligatr was a water electric type, which I found to be pretty unreal. Kazooie the Typhlosion was a fire and steel type, and again was pretty unreal since fairy type was in this game and was a great counter to fairies. And finally, Vanilla the Meganium being an ice and grass type, which sounds like complete ass, just look at Abomasnow, but this thing was actually really good, getting great attacking moves and having very respectable attacking stats. This team gets a 7 out of 10 for me. I had 4 starters on my team, which, yeah, was cool, but was pretty repetitive. But I do like all the Pokemon I used and thought were really strong, which was a plus. Oh boy, here we go. My next playthrough was my longest video yet, which was my playthrough of Pokemon Uranium. And yeah, this video is 2.5 hours long, my god. But Uranium holds a special place in my heart. It was the first fan game I ever played that included fan-made Pokemon, and I just played it when I was younger at a pretty memorable point in my life, so I just really like this game, and I'm just really biased towards it, but it is a fantastic game. It isn't even that long of a game, but I mentioned that I kept in all the story stuff with the game, since I normally cut all that out, but obviously that made the video much longer, hence to why it's 2.5 hours long. I mentioned in the video at the end that I thought this team I made specifically was my favorite team I made all year. And that statement remained true. This team is my favorite team I've made all year. My final team was, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the video or the game, I'd recommend doing so first. But that goes for all my videos. If you haven't seen them, what you doing? Go check them out, then come back and watch this one. But I guess I already spoiled half the teams I used. But my final team was Nauticon the Navigast, Mammoth the Fafnir, Jaws the Tubbereel, Snoopy the Jellin, Taco the Dunsaraf, and Vulcan the Achilles, my starter. This team gets a 10 out of 10. It was extremely powerful and in an S tier game. This team really resonated with me since I changed the team multiple times when planning for this game, trying it out with different starters and different Pokemon, but I ended up on this team and it kicked absolute ass. And I'm so happy with it, so 10 out of 10. Second to last, we got my Pokemon Fire Red, but with fan-made Pokemon video, which was my playthrough of Pokemon Astral Red, which simply replaced all the Kanto Pokemon with fan-made ones. And I'll just say right now, it's probably been pretty obvious that I see a game I want to play and I play it and make a video on it. That's the case for all the games I play. If I see it and I want to play it, I'll make a video on it. I obviously do take suggestions from all of you though, so if you have a game you want me to play, let me know. My final team for this game was Frosty the Monfrosity, an ice dragon type, and this thing is so sick. Trunks the Sensinong, a pure fighting type. Alloy the Mechamanton, a pure steel type. Fred the Skelechone, my starter and a water ghost type. Nemesis the Demorigan, a dark fairy type. And finally, Kilowatt the Drassarkit, an electric dragon type. This team gets an 8 out of 10. Really cool Pokemon, great types, and was one I didn't actually plan since this game doesn't have any documentation, so I couldn't really plan out a team beforehand, so I was playing this game completely blind, and I happened to make a pretty killer team out of it. And my last playthrough of the year, I don't want to say I saved the best till last, but we got my playthrough of Pokemon Star. Pokemon Star is a ROM hack of Pokemon Ultra Moon, and it just modifies the story and switches all the characters around in their roles. I mean, it's a little hard to explain how the story works since it's kind of all over the place, but if you want a good laugh, this is the game for that. I started this game way back as a series, but I stopped playing it for reasons I forget, so I wanted to come back and give this game another go and properly beat it. It also includes some fan-made Pokemon and different forms for Pokemon, which I'll get into. My final team for Star was Ripjaws the Ultra Machamp, a fire fighting type, Wilson the Alolan Electrode, an electric fire type, Scar the Incineroar SP, which was a special form of Ultra Incineroar that I chose to use since all the Ultra Starters' final forms have 5 forms to choose from, all with different abilities, stats, and they're all crazy. But Incineroar SP was a fire dragon type, Siren the Primarina Z, a water ice type, that was utterly insane, having Snow Warning and getting Tail Glow by level up, and spamming 100% accurate blizzards. Absolutely unfair. Hawkeye the Decidueye Z, a grass fairy type that learned Geomancy by level up, but never got to use it since this thing would always die before getting to set one up, which was super upsetting and disappointing, but whatever. And lastly was Yubi Queen, the Ultra Necrozma of this game, if you will, which was the villain of the story. I fought against it a couple times and decided it would be awesome to use it, so I looked up the process and got me one. And like, it just looks like this, by the way, which is absolutely insane. And it has a custom ability in Queen Boost, which is just the moody ability. At the end of each turn, raises one stat by 2, while another stat gets lowered by 1. Absolutely crazy team, but it's only getting a 6 out of 10. Since, once again, there was very little documentation on this game, so I never got to see the full decks and properly make a team. Which shows, since I had 3 fire types on my team. Plus, my starter was Decidueye, who was by far the most disappointing on my team, but it was still pretty damn good. So, that's it. Those were all my teams for each game I played in 2024. Let me know your thoughts about my teams, and let me know which one is your favorite, or which rating you would change. Also, just a quick thank you for all the support I've gotten through 2024. Truly means a lot, and I definitely will be continuing to make videos all throughout 2025. I got so many ideas for videos, it's not even funny. But have yourselves a good one, and a very happy late new year to everyone. I'll catch y'all in the next one.